Tonight, on First at 9 this Saturday the 24th of January 2026. The health halt. GMOA strike continues for a second day. No solutions reached. GMOA warns further union action if demands aren't met. Aging reforms. Parents of grade 6 students seek opposition leaders' support implementing education reforms. Government pushing reforms only to secure ADB funds, say the frontline socialists. Scam control. Army deserter nabbed over 2 recent shootings. Suspect confesses to plotting another murder. Police ramp up action over cybercrimes and online scams. Sky High City. Colombo ranked the most unaffordable city in the world for property purchasers.
Kalin baby soap රුපියල් 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Adrisinghe joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platform, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, in top story tonight, the 48-hour strike initiated by the Government Medical Officers Association continued for a second day today. The GMOA notes a lack of response for the suggestions posed to the minister and vows to initiate further union actions if the GMOA demands are not met.
The Government Medical Officers Association commenced a 48-hour token strike yesterday at state hospitals across the island. The protest was launched over the government's failure to implement several concessions and agreements provided in writing by the Minister of Health and Mass Media to address health sector concerns. Accordingly, the strike continued for a second day today. As a result of the strike, many patients were inconvenienced. Against this backdrop, members of the Government Medical Officers Association convened for a discussion on the token strikes.
All of us are government employees here. However, it might not be possible for all of us to reap the same benefits and privileges. Therefore, we made a proposal to exclude the medical service from the general government service. It has been over a year and a half since this proposal was tendered. The minister agreed and stated that a separate service would be established. However, we don't see that being implemented. We also discussed the issue of enrolling our children in schools on several occasions, but no proper solutions were provided. Since there was no response even after several rounds of discussion, we were compelled to initiate this trade union action. We request the President and the Minister to intervene and resolve these issues. Although this 48-hour strike ends tomorrow at 8 a.m., we are prepared to announce further trade union action in the future if necessary. We wish to inform the government that we have allowed sufficient room to resolve this matter. We remain ready for discussions even now.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමය forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
Now, in other news, the 2026 Grade 6 Parents Union called on opposition leader Sajith Premadasa yesterday, requesting his support in the immediate implementation of Grade 6 education reforms. In the meantime, a Satyagraha campaign launched by a group of parents in Gaul demanding the immediate implementation of learning modules was called off after 5 days today.
As the education reforms continue to polarize public opinion, representatives of the Grade 6 Parents Union called on the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. During the discussion yesterday, parents called on the opposition leader's support for the immediate implementation of education reforms, which were postponed to 2027. Several SJB representatives joined the meeting.
ඔබතුමාගේ මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපි ඉල්ලන්නේ ආණ්ඩුවට බලපෑමක් කරලා ගවර්න්මන්ට් මේ හම්බෙන්න දින අවස්ථාව උදා කරලා දෙන්න.
ඉස්සෙල්ලා හිතලා බලන්න මේ විපක්ෂයකට පුළුවන් ද ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ නතර කරන්න?
Consider this. Can an opposition stop reforms from being implemented? I will hand over a copy of a social media post shared by President Anurakumara Dissanayaka. Read it. According to this post, the Grade 6 education reforms have been postponed to 2027 in order to avoid issues in module compilation, delays in training and technical errors. We are not tied to its postponement whatsoever. The opposition leader does not generate these posts for the president. We pointed out the blunder they had made by including an inappropriate website in these modules. We did not urge the suspension of the reforms. I am not against reforms being implemented. However, reforms must be implemented with the right resources in place. They should have initiated efforts to provide computers and smart boards wherever necessary. Had they introduced a supplementary estimate for this purpose in July 2025, rather than spending money on printing faulty textbooks, we would have voted in favour. In order to cover up obscenity published in these modules, they announced that we are against reforms.
Meanwhile, a group of parents and teachers engaged in a protest in Navalapitiya today, calling for the immediate implementation of grade 6 education reforms. The Satyagraha launched by the Teachers and Parents Collective of Galle continued for a 5th consecutive day today, demanding the immediate implementation of grade 6 learning modules. The Satyagraha was called off subsequently after Deputy Minister Nalin Hevage promised to implement the reforms in question. Meanwhile, a seminar on education reforms was held at the National Library Auditorium in Colombo.
There is only one difference between the current education reforms and the reforms which were proposed by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was ousted from power. At the end of the list of the previous regime's reforms, which is exactly the same as the current reforms, it is stated that the implementation process would begin following the assessment of outcomes of a pilot project which would be launched in 120 selected schools. This government has taken out this single sentence. They have decided to implement these reforms at once without any prior testing, pilot projects and assessments, affecting 4.1 million students directly. Ranil Wickremesinghe assumed office after Gotabaya Rajapaksa was ousted. In September 2023, Ranil Wickremesinghe introduced a national education policy framework. What the government seeks to implement now is outlined in the structural changes to the school system section of this national education policy framework. The Asian Development Bank noted that the remaining $200 million would not be disbursed if reforms are not implemented by January of 2026. Learning modules have only been formulated for the first term of grade 6. They have only printed some of the books for the first term. They did so because the Asian Development Bank would not disburse funds if reforms were not implemented by the 5th. They are not focused on creating better opportunities for children. They are focused on collecting ADB funds in order to hike reserves so they can boast about it. There are just 3 periods allocated for mathematics for grade 6 students. This is why we informed the Prime Minister to debate this matter with us. We have questions to ask, especially on the execution of her duties.
Now, Minister of Agriculture, Livestock, Land and Irrigation K.D. Lalkantha vows decisive measures to curb and neutralize regressive forces obstructing the nation's progress. With that, here's a look at some thoughts shared in the political arena.
The current government is poised to maintain its leadership beyond the approaching decade. We remain steadfast in our commitment to serve the nation. This administration is free of fraud and corruption. Considering the ever-evolving global landscape, there is a pressing need to introduce new strategies in the education sector. The recent education reforms were designed to address these evolving demands. Unfortunately, due to a minor issue within one of the modules of the new reforms, implementation has been postponed until next year, a decision that is indeed unfair to the students. The president has suspended the reforms initiated by the government, citing the absence of a comprehensive plan. The opposition, however, does not object to this decision. I maintain that the president should clarify the rationale behind this retreat, particularly considering that he possesses executive authority and that the NPP holds 159 seats in parliament. The defeated opposition is now attempting to equate the government's new education reforms with the earlier grade 6 module issue, portraying it as a failure. While it is true that mistakes occurred when compiling the grade 6 modules, we acknowledged those errors and, as a government, remain committed to correcting them. Some may interpret this process as a failure on our part, but that is not the case. Indeed, while we take one step forward and occasionally take one step back, this does not hinder our resolve to implement policies that advance the nation's progress. The country has previously missed several opportunities to become a hub for education. Those who obstructed such initiatives at the time are now offering lessons on education reforms. It should be noted that Anuradha Dissanayake is not the President of the United States. Accordingly, we urge the government to pursue more practical and actionable decisions in the education sector. We see various forces that propagate racism, religious extremism and reactionary agendas. They all seek to impede national progress. When such elements attempt to gain influence, it is the government's responsibility to take measures to contain these threats. The administration will take appropriate action whenever these forces issue ambiguous or misleading statements regarding the government's initiatives. The government holds a different perspective on this issue. Although they are confident due to their 159 seats in parliament, we have historically unseated administrations exhibiting similar behavior. In 2022, a government showing comparable conduct was overthrown. The current administration could progress constructively if it sets aside this arrogance. I anticipate that the government's decline may begin by the end of this year. We are watching the situation closely.
The Western South Crime Division arrested a suspect believed to be involved in the recent Dehiwala shooting and another shooting in Kalubowila which caught a 16-year-old girl in the crossfire. Police revealed the suspect admitted to preparing for another murder, allegedly at infamous underworld operative Samantha's behest.
Sri Lanka Navy recently conducted a targeted deep-sea surveillance operation south of Sri Lanka, deploying long-range vessels off the back of intelligence received by the Inspector General of Police. The operation led to the interception of a multi-day fishing trawler and the arrest of 5 individuals, along with the seizure of approximately 200 kilograms of narcotics. The naval forces also detained a second multi-day fishing vessel suspected of drug trafficking. 6 additional suspects were apprehended and 2 satellite communication devices were confiscated. Authorities report that this vessel was carrying an estimated 70 kilograms of illicit substances. The suspects are expected to be brought ashore tomorrow, while police investigations indicate that the seized contraband is believed to include heroin and crystal methamphetamine. Preliminary intelligence suggests the narcotics shipment may have been consigned by the Hibale Malli. Meanwhile, in another development, an individual alleged to be involved in drug trafficking was fatally shot on the 6th December last year in Dehiwala. Subsequently, on December 30th, another shooting was reported in Kalubowila. While the intended target escaped, a 16-year-old girl sustained injuries in the incident. Investigations reveal that the individuals targeted in both shootings were close associates of the notorious drug trafficker Badovita Asanka. Police suspected that the attacks were orchestrated by an underworld figure identified as Samantha. In an effort to apprehend the suspect, the police media spokesperson's office recently released a composite sketch of the suspected gunman to the public. Following extensive investigations, officers of the Western South Crime Division arrested the suspect yesterday in the Kottava area. The suspect, identified as 35-year-old Samira Silva, also known as Samma, is a resident of Dehiwala. During interrogation, police recovered a foreign-manufactured revolver concealed in an abandoned house in Dehiwala. Authorities further revealed that the suspect had previously been held in remand custody for over a year and was subsequently released on bail furnished by Samantha. According to police, the suspect confessed to carrying out both shootings under Samantha's direction, claiming he was paid approximately 600,000 rupees in heroin and cash. He further disclosed that during the Kalubowila incident, the intended target pushed a nearby girl, resulting in her injury. Investigations also confirmed that the suspect is a deserter from the Sri Lanka Army and has since been involved in criminal activities. Additionally, police reported that he admitted to preparing for another murder in Mattakulia, allegedly at Samantha's behest.
Police spokesperson ASP F.U. Wootler claims the Computer Crimes Investigation Unit has prepared comprehensive plans to apprehend individuals involved in cybercrimes and online scams. Addressing a press conference today, he urged the public to remain vigilant amid the rising threat of cyber offences and encourage victims to seek assistance from law enforcement authorities when necessary.
Amid renewed concern over cybercrimes and online scams, a press briefing was held today where the police spokesperson advised the public on how to protect themselves from falling prey to such frauds.
We have already informed the public about online scams carried out through social media platforms. Both young people and adults are being targeted, with scammers using various schemes to steal money. They may approach victims posing as well-known personalities or reputed companies and request personal details such as contact numbers, passwords and OTP codes, which are then used to commit financial fraud. If a suspicious individual continues to contact you, you should immediately inform the nearest police station. If possible, save the contact numbers, record their voices, and inform your bank to temporarily suspend transactions. Last year, 318 individuals were arrested over cybercrimes, while more than 2,000 complaints were lodged with the appropriate authorities. Under the direct supervision of the Inspector General of Police, the Computer Crimes Investigation Unit has prepared comprehensive plans to combat cybercrime in 2026. Members of the public can visit the Criminal Investigation Department in person to lodge written complaints. Complaints can also be sent via email to directorcid@police.gov.lk and dir.cid@police.gov.lk. The Deputy Director of the Computer Crimes Investigation Unit can be contacted on 011 23 00 638, while the officer in charge can be reached via 011 23 81058. Additionally, complaints can be lodged by emailing report@cid.police.gov.lk.
report@cid.police.government.lk.
United Nations Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka, Marc-Andre Franche, reaffirmed support for the government's Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund, established to finance rehabilitation and reconstruction efforts following the widespread destruction caused by Cyclone Ditwa. The assurance was given during a meeting with the Minister of Rural Development, Social Security and Community Empowerment, Dr. Upali Panilage, held at the ministry premises yesterday. Marc-Andre Franche also commended the government's initiatives to assist families affected by the cyclone and to restore damaged infrastructure. The discussions focused on post-disaster management, relief measures for displaced families, and long-term rebuilding efforts across the country. Chilly winds and cold weather were felt across the island during the past few days. Noting these developments, the country's top weather office predicts the chilly weather to persist till February. Along with the cold weather, frosty conditions were also observed in Nuwara.
Chilly temperatures were felt across the island during the past few days, particularly in the early hours. A dense fog was observed in Nuwara, with ground frost also being noticed in several localities of Nuwara, including at the racecourse and the Gregory Lake. Noting these developments, the top weather office issued an explanation on the reasons behind the chilly weather.
Cold winds originating near the Tibetan Plateau in the Indian region are currently moving across Sri Lanka. In the morning, sunlight heats up the ground. This heat is released in the evening. As the heat is being released, moisture-laden air particles near the Earth's surface continue to cool. This also contributes to the low temperature readings observed across the country. When temperatures drop to frost levels, fog can also be observed in the morning. In areas such as Nuwara, snow frost can be seen forming on leaves. While there may be fluctuations in these conditions, the situation can be expected to continue until the end of February.
And now here's a look at more local news across the island in brief.
The Deputy Secretary General of Parliament and Chief of Staff Chaminda Kularatne has been suspended from office. It is reported that the suspension took effect yesterday. The Advisory Committee on Parliamentary Staff is said to have taken this decision due to issues that have arisen regarding his appointment. Senior Attorney at Law Chaminda Kularatne has been serving as the Deputy Secretary General and Chief of Staff of Parliament since September 15, 2023. However, it is also reported that Chaminda Kularatne plans to take legal action against the decision. Minister of Public Administration, Provincial Councils and Local Government, Professor Chandana Aberatne, visited Kandy today to meet the chief prelates of the Malwatu and Askiria chapters and to convey the government's decision regarding the request to declare May 30th as Vesak Poya Day this year. The chief prelates of the three Buddhist monastic fraternities previously requested the president to declare May 30th as Vesak Poya Day. This declaration was deemed necessary since two Poya Days fall in May this year, on the 1st and on the 30th of May. During the the meeting, the minister stated that the official committee appointed to determine Poya days has designated May 1st as Vesak Poya Day and that the Poya Day will be observed on that date accordingly. However, taking into consideration the request made by the chief prelates, the minister added that the president has decided to hold the state Vesak festival on May 30th this year. In other local news, 6 people were injured and admitted to the Diyathalawa Base Hospital after a private bus travelling from Haputale to Kirivanagama collided head-on with an SLTB bus travelling in the opposite direction in the Soragune area of Haldumulla yesterday afternoon.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, Sri Lanka Customs collected revenue of 175.4 billion rupees, exceeding its 160.2 billion rupee revenue target set for January 2026. The figure depicted revenue collected just within the first 22 days of January, denoting a surplus of 9.5%, exceeding the target for the month. Last year, Customs recorded revenue of 2,551 billion rupees, surpassing the target of 2,241 billion rupees set for the year. This shows a 64.2% increase in revenue compared to the previous year's figure, which stood at 1,553 million rupees. The Customs has set a revenue target of 2,207 billion rupees for this year, 13.5% less than last year, as it expects a significant decline in car imports. Numbeo, the world's largest cost of living database, ranked Colombo the most unaffordable city in the world for buying property. Data shows that the price-to-income ratio in Colombo is 55.3, meaning the average property costs more than 55 times the average annual income. By comparison, the gross rental yield, the annual rental income as a percentage of property price, is just 3% in the city centre and 3.8% outside the centre, making property investments less profitable. Furthermore, the mortgage burden for the average resident is staggering, with mortgage payments equivalent to 774% of annual income. The city's affordability index stands at 0.1, underscoring the extreme difficulty for locals to purchase property. The ranking places Colombo ahead of other Asian cities known for high property prices, including Kathmandu in Nepal, Manila in the Philippines, Xiamen, Shanghai, Hong Kong and Beijing in China, Taipei in Taiwan and Mumbai in India. 194,553 tourists arrived in Sri Lanka by the 22nd of January this year. According to the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the highest number of tourist arrivals was recorded on the 15th of January, with 10,483 tourists visiting the island. India continued to be the top source market in January, with Indian tourists accounting for 18% of arrivals. Russia came in second, with the United Kingdom, Germany and France following. Ukrainian and Russian negotiators have held talks in the United Arab Emirates, with the key issue of territory dominating the agenda as the United States pushes for an agreement to end the nearly 4-year war. Yesterday's discussions were the first direct public negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv on a plan being pushed by the US administration to end the conflict.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said territorial disputes would be a central issue in the discussions, but stressed that it is most important for Russia to end the war it started. The discussions in the Emirati capital came a day after Zelensky met with Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said yesterday that Russia insisted on Ukraine yielding all of Donbas, including 20% of Donetsk, which is still under Ukrainian control, categorizing it as a very important condition. For its part, Ukraine has demanded security guarantees from its Western allies, including the US, should a deal to end the war be signed, in order to deter Russia from invading again. Before Friday's talks began, Ukraine said Russian strikes had killed 3 people in the Kharkiv region and 4 people in the east. Despite the continued fighting, Trump said this week that he believed both Putin and Zelensky wanted to reach an agreement to end the war.
Rescue teams are searching for survivors after a landslide in the West Bandung region of Indonesia's West Java province left at least 7 people dead and dozens missing. A landslide in Pasilangu village in West Bandung at about 2 a.m. local time this morning. Landslides accompanied by flash flooding smashed into some 30 homes in the village while most of their inhabitants were sleeping. Indonesia's armed forces, the Regional Disaster Management Agency, volunteers and the local community are all involved in emergency response efforts. Fearing further tragedy, local authorities have ordered the evacuation of residents in areas which are known to be prone to landslides. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.